A very good afternoon to everybody present here. And I welcome you to the U20, the University 20 Connect of G20. I welcome Honorable Professor K.S. Ramappa, the former Vice Chancellor of USP, Dr. Sheshadri, Dr. Bharti, from Maharajas College, Professor D. Subhachandran from NIAS, the faculty and experts from other institutions of Mysore and Bangalore, panelists, our research scholars, students, and guests of today's gathering. Before we begin the proceedings of today's event, we will watch the G20 India's chairmanship official introduction meeting.
Sir, switch off, please switch on. Bad one time. Video play.
India, home to 1.3 billion people, is a confluence of religions, traditions, and customs. A thriving global center of technology and the world's largest democracy. As one of the oldest civilizations in the world with a rich cultural heritage and diversity, and as the fifth largest economy in the world, India is proud to assume the presidency of G20. As the country blooms into a new era, we look to another poignant symbol for humanity to emerge victorious from challenges. The lotus, the national flower of India, represents our history and culture and symbolizes spirituality, fruitfulness, wealth, and knowledge. And that's the inspiration for India's G20 logo design. The design rendered in saffron, white, green, and blue is drawn from the national flag of India. The 7 petals in the logo signify the 7 seas and the coming together of 7 continents at G20 India 2023. Sitting above the lotus is a representation of the earth, reflecting India's pro-planet approach to life and seeing the world as one family. From this, we derive the theme for G20 India 2023, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. A theme that brings the G20's focus on sharing global growth. One being in harmony with nature. G20 India 2023. One earth, one family, one future.
U20 is a University 20 Connect that was initiated under the leadership of MEA, organized by RIS. NIAS is working with them. The idea is to bring 75 universities together across the country and try to see how we can look at the future together along with the youth. I would now like to formally invite Professor K.S. Ramappa, Dr. Sheshadri Chari, Dr. Bharti Rimat, and Professor Subhachandran to the dais. I call Dr. Bharti to give an introduction to the event and also invite us to the event.
Hello, Namaskara. Good afternoon to all the delegates and guest participants from all over the country. I welcome you all to the city of Palace and the cultural capital of Karnataka. It is a matter of pride to be one among 75 universities involved in G20 University Connect. We are very happy that we have the opportunity to share this momentous occasion with the students, scholars, and experts from all domains. We are deeply honored to have with us Professor K. Rangappa, former Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore, and present Ambassador of Hokkaido University, Japan. I also wish to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sheshadri Chari, Member Governing Council, RIS New Delhi, and Dr. Krishna Prasadian, Managing Director, Nature Bell Wellness, Mysore, Niyati Singh, Research Consultant, RIS, and Professor D. Subhashandran, Dean School of Conflict and Studies, NIAS, Bangalore. I would like to extend my warm welcome to all the professors and faculties from various departments and colleges. Our Honorable Prime Minister has referred today's youth as nation builders and leaders of tomorrow. That the whole world is looking at India's youth with hope as they are the growth engines of the world. With this hope, I welcome all the young scholars to the memorable event that is G20 University Connect Engaging Young Minds. I hope each and every participant will benefit from this program. Thank you. Once again, welcome to you all people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the warm welcome. I would like to call Professor Subha to introduce us about the workshop.
Thank you, Arnie, Professor Rangappa, Dr. Chari, Dr. Bharti, senior faculty from the university, scholars from not only this university, also from other university, scholars who have come all the way from different institutions in this part of the world to take part in the Young Scholars panel today. On behalf of the institutions, the Ministry of External Affairs, the RIS New Delhi, our own university, University of Mysore, and my institute, National Institute of Advanced Studies. Let me invite you for two events today as a part of the G20 University Connect that we have been doing ever since India took over the G20 presidency. My intervention today is to discuss, or is to kind of put in front of you what we are planning to do, what we have done, and what we will be doing today. As a part of the University Connect at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, we have been holding a series of young scholars discussion on G20. In the discussion, we had one in Bangalore, one in Chennai, and two in Chennai, with young scholars taking the lead. We have been discussing that we have to create awareness amongst young scholars. That's one common statement that we make. We have to create awareness amongst young scholars on G20. I remember one of the meeting in Loyola College. Professor Rangappa, Dr. Reddy will be happy to know. One young scholar, she's a MA graduate, first year MA graduate, working on protecting the heritage and indigenous knowledge. And first year postgraduate scholar, she said, we have to create awareness among the G20 on what needs to be done. So that gave me a lot of confidence that it's not only that we want to create awareness among the young scholars, but young scholars think that G20 we need to create awareness among the G20 to what to do. So the question then it started. So what do they think G20 should do? So today's discussion, the first panel that before the experts panel, in fact, that's the speciality of our workshop, that we put the young scholars first, and then we get the experts to come and discuss how they saw, how they see, and what their recommendations are. We start with the young scholars panel. We have 10 young scholars from different institutions: Pondicherry, Chennai, Bangalore, Mysore, and also Goa. They'll be talking to you on different issues, very briefly, asking three questions, or trying to answer three questions. One, why is that they have picked up the theme that they are talking? And two, what G20 has done so far on the theme. And three, what is that they think G20 should do. Maybe for the second panel, in which I'm sure Dr. Chari and Professor Rangappa along with Sir, you will be there. I want you to reflect on how they see what G20 should do. So that's the first panel that we will have young scholars talking about. So that is about today. So what we intend to do with these meetings, I told you this is the fourth meeting we are having. We are planning at the Institute, National Institute of Advanced Studies, we are trying to bring a young scholars policy brief that we could submit to the G20 as a kind of a recommendation from all these institutions in Mysore, Bangalore, Chennai, Pondicherry, to them. And this is how we see, we in the sense, the young scholars see what the G20 could do. And in the long run, maybe this I would request Dr. Charlie to take back to Delhi. In the long run, we don't want to end with this G20. We are looking at the next G20. We are looking at the next 10 years, how this set of students can get connected with the next set of students or next set of G20 if it is held anyways. So we don't see this as something happening today. From the young scholars' perspective, we are looking at the next 10 years or 15 years. Connected with other universities from other countries that will take the G20 presence. So that's a larger plan. We may succeed, we may try and not, but then it's an effort. And I'm so thankful to Mysore University, Dr. Bharti, Professor Rangappa, and all of you for hosting us here in this historical city and giving platform to young scholars and also be a part of this journey our young scholars are intended. Thank you. I'm sincerely hoping that you listen to our young scholars and take part in that interaction. Thank you once again, especially to the Department of International Relations and University of Mysore and the entire Mysore University bureaucracy. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Dr. Bharti, and thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure that the young scholars have prepared a lot today as well, so there's something to take away. I would now like to call Professor K.S. Rangappa to inaugurate the G20 University Connect and share his remarks for today's event.
Namaskar. Good afternoon, everyone. Professor Subha Tichari from RAS, New Delhi, and Shri Subhachandran, Dr. Hiremat, Bharati Hiremat, and distinguished scholars, invitees, ladies and gentlemen, media friends. It's indeed an honor for me to be here on this occasion. I was supposed to be in the panel, but Dr. Bharti today morning said I have to be in the inaugural too. Anyway, thank you for giving me an opportunity to involve or participate in this G20 University Connect. Of course, I was the university head for a long time. And I thought, let me, participate in this G20 University Connect. Anyway, this program is jointly organized by the Ministry of External Affairs and RIS New Delhi and NIAS Bangalore, and in coordination with the University of Mysore, particularly Professor Bharati Hiremat from the Department of International Relations. And I'm sure, as Dr. Subhachandra put it, it's a very important event and program which the youngsters must know. And I'm happy that is the University of Mysore, and I wish the program a grand success. This G20 University Connect, Engaging Young Minds. Look at the title, Engaging Young Minds. You cannot leave them away from the things. That's the engaging young mind is an event held as a part of the India's presidency of G20, the intergovernmental forum comprising 19 countries and the European Union. Our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji initiated this G20 University Connect, which is being jointly organized by the Minister, as I mentioned, RIS, Ministry of External Affairs, and so on. The objective, as he has mentioned, is to engage with students from 75 universities around 56 locations across India, which is a very important and program. Also, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has referred to today's youth as nation builders and leaders of tomorrow. That the whole world is looking at India's youth with hope, as they are the growth engines of the world. It is because of the reason the team Youth Connect was chosen to give this mega event an eventful and energetic start. So therefore, we Indians have before us a unique opportunity and a profound responsibility to showcase of our rich cultural heritage and diversity, tourism potential, and development power, so that the world derives value from their interactions with us. As I could gather some information, the G20 focus areas until today. In 2017, Germany focused on improving the global health. In 2018, Argentina focused on improving soil and productivity. In 2019, Japan focused on climate change and the conservation of ocean environment. In 2020, Saudi Arabia focused on critical transitions in science. That's very important. In 2021, Italy focused on pandemic preparedness and the role of science. In 2022, just last year, Indonesia focused on the recovery of the pandemic. In 2023, from our country, focusing on disruptive changes and sustainable development goals, which is very important. And during my panel discussion, probably I might request the G20 fellows to recommend some of the few things which are related to science. In fact, I am a scientist. I always encourage science. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to show the success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I now invite Dr. Sheshadri Chari to come give us his special remarks. He is from RIS, one of our partner organizations in US.
Thank you, Dr. Nagapal, Dr. Subha Chandran, and Dr. Hirimat. On behalf of RIS, I thank all of you for the opportunity that we have actually given us. We all know that RIS is a 39-year-old organization. It was started basically as research and information system for developing countries. Initially, it was still a longer name. It was Non-Aligned Movements Research and Information System for Developing Countries. So India was a part of the non-aligned movement. Of course, we are still part of the non-aligned movement. Whether it is relevant or not today is a different question. But non-alignment is always, they say, it is reflected in different manners. So today, what we call multilateralism is that it is non-alignment anyway. That's not the subject of discussion today, of course. So basically, the developing world wanted a leadership, and they saw India as a potential leader even then. That India should take a lead as far as then it was still called the developing world. There was a developed world and a developing world, and below that was an underdeveloped countries. So now the essence of that once India took over all these issues, when RIS was started, the then Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi was very forefront in the forefront of this putting together this idea. And one of the finest brains in those days, as far as international relations and other areas, foreign relations was concerned, was Ambassador G. Parthasarathy. So he incidentally he is also the founder of JNU. So these people came together and suggested that we only talk in terms of cultural relationship that we have. We talk in terms of the traditional relationship that we have. But more importantly, we should not only talk in terms of one country leading the others, but we should talk in terms of a collaborative, cooperative development project. So no country should suggest to another country that you are an underdeveloped country or you are a developing country. We are all developing together. So this idea of looking at the entire world, the problems of the world and the solutions of the world as one unit. That is what we say. This idea existed 40 years back. So when G20, presidency of G20 came to India, the Prime Minister suggested two things. One is, he said G20 is essentially between government to government. The government representative come meet together and do something. So the governments speak to one another. The Prime Minister said, why only governments should speak to one another? Why not we go beyond that? Why not we take the entire idea of G20 to the people of India? So they started working on it. Then the other idea that he gave was, he said, we have problems in the world and we have solutions also. So G20 is all about linking the problems and the solutions. The problems belong to yesterday. The solutions belong today, but we are working for a tomorrow. So are we involving the stakeholders of tomorrow? Students, youngsters, the youth are the stakeholders of tomorrow. Instead of leaving a problem for them, why not we leave some solutions for them? That is how he started taking interest in this. And then he suggested that we should go to universities. They are the repositories of knowledge in this country. So we should go to as many universities as possible, all the universities if possible, but that is not practical in the shortest period of time. So we suggested that we are celebrating 76 years of India's independence. So take 76 universities. Then we sat and made a list of 76 universities. RIS was given the responsibility of making the list and also trying to implement this program. So we knew our limitations also. So then because of our limitations, basically RIS deals with multilateral and bilateral trade institutions and trade issues. So we thought the best persons in this would be that we contact people who are already in touch with the future scholars, in touch with students, in touch with youth, in touch with researchers, in touch with scientists, in touch with academia. So in that connection, every university we collected a few individuals who would contribute. So then we made it into region-wise engagements. And in that connection, we came in touch with Dr. Subha, who is a very old friend of mine. So we suggested that you should take the initiative in some of the southern universities. So in that process, Mysore University event which is taking place today is part of that process. And I'm extremely happy to know. And I thank the organizers and also all the organizations and institutions, especially the Mysore University, which has taken so much interest and initiative to organize this meeting. Along with the meeting, we also had suggestions from young scholars. So, I mean, although I don't belong to that part, I'm neither a nor a scholar, but still, by virtue of being part of the RES, as member of the governing board, it is my duty to address them. And whatever suggestions they give, as you and Sasaba said, whatever suggestions you give, my duty is like a postman and go and give it to the government. And being on the board of RES, it also becomes my duty to implement those suggestions. So you can be rest assured that these suggestions will not only reach the logical conclusion, will also be, will try and, as part of the government of India, we try and implement some of them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you, panel, for the wonderful inaugural session. I now welcome my colleague Rashmi to take over the proceedings of the next session.
for the future of G20 and what G20 can do under India's presidency. For this purpose now, we have each speaker having the 3 minutes to put forth their ideas and points briefly and effectively across to the audience. We look forward for an engaging session with you all, and we right away begin, and we'll start the session with Harinu Madhusudhan, who's a PhD scholar at NIAS, and she'll be talking to us about space technology and governance agenda for G20. Also, a gentle reminder for the speakers to adhere to the time so that we will finish the session on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. A very good afternoon again. I will be talking about Space 20 or outer space for global governance. The idea of looking at outer space is that space has become a domain that will assist a lot of factors of the society. And India's space program has started off as a program that was for the development of the country, be it agriculture, be it disaster warning. We've done a significant job in the past decades using space for our developmental goals. So in this context, I'll be looking at outer space and how G20 can look at outer space. In 2020, when in the 2020 G20 presidency, outer space was added as a Space 20 part of G20 events. So this year will be the 4th year where space is one of the agendas of G20 events. In April last month, in Shillong, Meghalaya, there was a precursor to the S20 space event that's going to be held in July 2023. And the theme of this event was to discuss how space partnerships can contribute to the growth of the economy of G20 nations. Space for national development was one of the biggest highlights of this discussion. And I think this was very strongly endorsed in the meeting in Shillong. In this context, India has throughout its space endeavors applied its space technology for national developmental purposes, sometimes for regional development too. We have successfully utilized our satellites for agriculture, disaster management, common navigation strategies, navigational systems, and in critical scientific and governmental domains. So a common G20 initiative on space for development would be extremely beneficial for all of the G20 countries. All G20 countries have their own space programs. Learning from the experience of the other G20 space powers would be extremely beneficial for all of the members. The one addition that would likely be useful for the G20 space meeting in July would be to discuss the regional stance on lunar space. Moon has become a new contestation for space powers in the context of approaching the moon for lunar resources, but also seeing the moon as a race to make the first mark felt there. There are 2 lunar initiatives, the Artemis Accords and the International Lunar Research Center, which are led by 2 different space powers. All of the G20 countries can work towards discussing the developmental benefits of moon and on how to approach planetary and celestial missions in deep space in the future. Additionally, one of the biggest problems that space powers or space programs are facing is the common concern of all of the G20 members, that is orbital crowding. Space traffic management, that is managing the crowd that is being created in various orbits around the Earth. Space situational awareness, being aware of where what satellite is present and what capabilities of these satellites are, and the need for responsible behavior in outer space. This is to ensure that our presence in outer space does not cause any intentional or unintentional harm to other countries' space assets. All these themes will be essential themes for discussion at the S20 Foreign Ministers meeting in July 2023. Upholding the principles of development, ensuring the smooth functioning of outer space assets, and looking beyond the orbits, that is towards the moon and other celestial bodies like asteroids, Mars, and all of that, is the best way to look at space in the current decade. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harini. We next have Akriti Sharma, who's also a PhD scholar at NIAS, and she'll be talking to us about climate change, action for G20.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be talking about climate action and agenda for G20. So my presentation will be divided into three parts. The first would be climate change and G20. The second would be the climate action that G20 has taken so far. And the third would be how G20 and India can set the agenda for climate action. Now, climate change is the most pressing challenges of our times, and it has been the driver of extreme weather events and disasters with major economic and social fallouts. G20 countries are presently spending their 9% of their average investments in dealing with the impacts of climate change. And being major economies, they're also contributing 75% to the global emissions. And therefore, G20 can prove to be a game changer when it comes to climate action to bridge the gap, the emission gap that we have, and to achieve the 2030 target. Second, in terms of what G20 has done so far to address climate change. Now, climate change has been on the agenda of G20 since its inception in Washington Summit to the latest Indonesia, the Bali Summit in Indonesia. And G20 has been focusing on climate finance and also phasing out the dependency on fossil fuels. Under Saudi Arabia's presidency in 2020, G20 recognized the need to support the Paris and the Kunming Agreement. They also recognized the need to adopt the nature-based solutions and ecosystem-based approaches. They also discussed about addressing water and food security, which have been impacted a lot by climate change. Under Italy's presidency in 2021, G20 extended support to the vulnerable countries, that is the low-income countries, small island states, and the African countries that require funds for climate action. And G20 also discussed about providing special drawing rights from the G20 fund. And they also talked in Italy about collaborating with the state and the non-state actors, including the civil society and youth. Under Indonesia's presidency in 2022, G20 discussed the need for rapid transition and securing energy security at the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic. And they also talked about promoting ocean-based climate action. And they also recognize the need for research and innovation in terms of mitigation and adaptation. Coming to my last section on what G20 can do in terms of climate action. Now, G20 is a magic number of a small number of countries which are indispensable and can make a bigger impact in terms of climate action. And it can do the following. First, it can bridge the gap between the developed and the developing countries to build consensus for transitioning into renewable energy and technology transfer and achieve energy security in the times of global crisis that we are facing. And the second is the increase in the finance. Now, G20 can help mobilize climate finance because not all countries are enough to undertake climate action. So India has announced Green Development, Climate Finance, and Lifestyle for Environment Initiative as one of its key priorities. And it also hosted the Voice of Global South Summit, which was aimed at energy security, sustainable energy transition, and energy justice. And that's where I think India's presidency can bridge the gap between the developed and the developing countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Akriti. We now have Padmashri Anandan. She's a research associate at NIAS. She'll be talking to us about maritime governance.
Good afternoon, all. Today I'll be talking on the maritime governance. And I have split my presentation in three parts. What has been done on the maritime governance from the conservation point of view so far in the G20 summits. And my second section will focus on what have been the significant gaps, and thirdly, what can be done for the G20 India 2023. Starting with my presentation, so far there have been more than 6 to 7 summits which have focused on bringing into the maritime conservation point. Starting from, I'll go from the recent one, which being the G20 Bali 2022 summit, which they launched this Ocean 20 initiative, where they focused on blue economy, marine safeguarding, on decreasing the inequalities amongst the coastal communities, And the G20 Rome, the 2021, focused on bringing the connect between the climate change and the biodiversity loss, especially in terms of ocean, and increasing the technology and capacity building in terms of maritime governance. They've also come up with they also agreed on a communique to look into the overfishing aspect and transport and travel, mainly to address the maritime tradeways. And the 2017 summit that happened in Hamburg looked into an action plan for marine litter, mainly concentrating into addressing the waste management, solid waste, and storm waste system. As far as the 2013, 2010, and 2011 and 2012, mostly focused on the marine environment aspects and marine transport aspects. At the individual level, at the individual G20 country level, France, Germany, and the US, they have come up with enormous amount of initiatives looking into global coalition on blue carbons, Blue Action Fund, mainly to improve more research on maritime, and also to improve the ocean prosperity and protection aspects. Apart from this, China and Russia have had more focused approaches looking into the desalination parts, and Russia has had a focus on the Arctic and marine ecosystem. So this has been what's happening so far in the G20 summits in the last decades. What are the gaps that we see here is that all these focus has been on the maritime and the conservation point of view. It has evolved from the security to economic, but seeing it always at the climate change level, but not at the ocean or ocean below the water or the SDG 14, there's not been much focus on the conservation aspect. Mostly it has been seen at the benefit of the security level or the economic trade promotion. So that's one of the gaps that's mainly that we could see in the last G20 summits that have happened. And the last, the Bali summit, they published a list where they have ranked the countries on the SDG 14 ranks. Let it be from Argentina to US to Germany. All of them have indicated major challenges being remaining and significant challenges remaining. So what could be done is establishing more thresholds and measures to actually come up with, to analyze in detail, like what the performance or how the ocean is being depleting, or how the impact assessment can be done. So in the last section, I would like to make 3 recommendations for this. The first would be to bring in the focus on the maritime governance. The end goal should not be more on the economic and the security aspect, but also to bring in the conservation point of view and the marine biodiversity point of view, the ecosystem. That is one. And seeing ocean as a common being, and seeing it like the recent connecting with the France's One Ocean Science Initiative. The second would be seeing India as a leader for Global South. The South Asia contributes 80% of the fisheries sectors is being contributed from the South Asia. And so as far as the maritime tourism, 5% of the world GDP comes again from South Asia. So what can be done is India as a Global South leader, it can be on taking it from the economic frontier, bringing up more ocean-based industries such as wind energy, offshore aquaculture. So such industries can be brought up. And the last recommendation is involvement of youth. Similar to Germany's Meerwissen initiative and UNESCO's 2030 agenda and bringing the ocean education as part of the higher education level, something like that can also be brought into this G20 2023 as a focus, as an action plan to bring ocean education at the university level, think tank level, and also that might lead to the governance aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Padmashri, for those views. Our next speaker is Varsha. She's a postgraduate scholar, Madras Christian College, Chennai. She's going to talk to us about addressing maritime plastic and what G20 can do.
Good afternoon, all. I'm here to present on issue of maritime plastic litter and what G20 can do.
In recent years, the blue economy has gained prominence among the international community. The focus it has gained reflects the continuous exploitation of marine resources and dumping of waste into the ocean. In this context, one of the alarming issues is marine plastic litter. It has various negative impacts not only on the marine life, but also on tourism and shipping. According to International Maritime Organization, the amount of waste may outweigh fish in the ocean by 2050. Therefore, it is essential to address this issue in this effective international forum. Let us see the previous 5 summits that addressed this issue. The first action against the maritime plastic litter was addressed in 2017 under German's presidency. This summit approved G20 action plan on marine litter, following which a voluntary global network of the committed GNC was launched to provide a platform to share knowledge and experiences on the implementation of this action plan. In 2019 summit under Japan's presidency, the working group formed the G20 implementation framework for actions on marine plastic litter. 2 measures were highlighted in the report, that is the facilitation of effective implementation with a comprehensive life cycle approach, and the second was collaborative actions involving multi-stakeholder and outreach programs. In 2020 summit under Saudi Arabia's presidency, the measures such as environment-friendly product design, investment in marine debris solutions, and mapping of marine plastic litter were implemented. In 2021 summit, under Italy's presidency, measures such as restriction of single-use plastics, legislation acts on littering, the zero-waste plastic waste agenda, and closed-loop recycling methods were carried out. In 2022 summit, under Indonesia's presidency, measures such as action on fishing gear, introduction of extended producer responsibility policies, and logistic system for packaging were put into practice. These were the measures taken by the previous summits. Following this, I have few recommendations for G20 to resolve this issue. First, it is essential to develop monitoring and regulating mechanisms for eradicating microplastics and ensuring to sustain the process. Second, domestic markets should be created for recycled materials, especially for single-use plastics. Research and developmental activities should also be encouraged. It is also vital to provide financial assistance for the research activities for designing sustainable ocean policies, developing alternatives for the plastics, and widening the data collection process on general waste and marine plastics. Awareness programs should be encouraged at the grassroots level, which leads to reduction in the use of plastics at greater pace. Finally, the most important measure is to provide financial aid for the developing countries that share coastal borders for implementing ocean policies. These countries should also use finances for technological development and engage stakeholders with innovative startups. To conclude, India and its presidency can look into these measures extensively and set a great example for upcoming G20 summits by providing effective monitoring methods to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Varsha. Our 5th speaker is Renuka Hiremat. She's a PhD scholar from Visvesvaraya Technological University, Belagavi. She's going to talk to us about green energy transition and sustainable development, the case of solar agriculture.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I would like to thank MEA, RIS, NIAS, and Department of International Relations for providing this wonderful platform. Today, I'll be elaborating on how solar agriculture can be a game changer for all the G20 countries. As we all know, agriculture sector accounts for 4% to 25% of the global GDP, thus making it an important and essential sector for all the countries. At present, the agriculture sector consumes 20% of the total energy consumption, and the usage of diesel pumps and the tractors is leading to million tons of carbon dioxide emissions every year. Therefore, there is a need for sustainable technologies in agriculture sector. Here, I would like to introduce the concept of solar agriculture. That is the inclusion of solar tractors, solar fence, solar greenhouse, agrivoltaics, as well as solar dryers. By doing so, the G20 countries can have multiple benefits. One, we can reduce the carbon dioxide emissions, thus contributing to achieving COP26 goals. Secondly, we can save the energy. And third, by using solar fence, the death rate of animals such as pangolins, elephants, tortoise due to electrocution can also be reduced. I would like to outline the previous G20 summits at Riyadh and Rome. The summits focused on agriculture innovation and sustainable energy transition. And at the G20 Indonesia presidency, the focus was on solar powered irrigation to boost productivity. I would like to mention 2 points here. In this summit, the solar irrigation was considered beneficial from the point of food security and hunger. I believe that solar agriculture can be crucial from the perspective of energy sector as well as climate action. Till now, the focus has been only on the solar irrigation and solar panels. This has to be extended to all the solar agriculture systems. Therefore, I have 5 recommendations. At first, I strongly recommend that partnerships in engineering are essential across national and international engineering institutions involving government, industries, and universities. Second, international collaborative effort is required to develop closer links between Energy Transition Working Group and Sustainable Finance Working Group, such as Asian Development Bank and World Bank Group, to finance for such sustainable projects. There is a program by International Solar Alliance for scaling solar application for agricultural use, but it is facing challenge due to absence of a dedicated program by multilateral and bilateral institutions for funding such projects. This can be overcome by strong collaboration among the corporate partners. Fourth, many solar agricultural systems such as solar tractors are still at the demo stage. Multilateral institutions such as International Energy Agency and Bureau of Energy Efficiency must step forward, and an understanding must be developed to fund these innovative agricultural projects. And the G20 countries can come up with an advisory committee to reform the present agricultural policies, considering innovation, economic growth, and sustainable development. And moving to this part of what India can contribute to G20. India is blessed with the tropical climate, and it also has the world's largest solar farm in Rajasthan. And the third largest farm is located in Pavgad, Tumkur, Karnataka. So therefore, India can make utmost use of this by developing better solar energy systems with better storage capacities. Later, there can also be transfer of technology among the G20 countries. I strongly believe that India under the G20 presidency will lead and motivate others to actively engage in our global mission of one sun, one world, one grid, thus fulfilling our mottos of making India for the world and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you.
Thank you, Renuka. We now have Harish Raya. He's a postgraduate scholar, Maharaja's College, Mysore University. He's going to talk on heritage conservation, technology's role in heritage conservation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, respected delegates, and of course, the power of youth. I'm present here. It is my honor and immense proudness to talk about my agenda, that is heritage conservation and technology, in this August meeting at capital of heritage and technology and conservation, that is our proud Mysore. Although much has been discussed about heritage conservation in past G20 declarations, particularly in Italy's presidency in 2021 about the protection against damage, illegal trafficking of priceless heritage items, vandalism, endangered by conflicts and disasters, the use of technology in heritage conservation has been largely overshadowed by other broad aspects of culture and tourism sector. The potential and challenges. The meaning of virtual technologies in the area of preservation of cultural heritage, and more specifically of museum heritage, is widely discussed by scientific community. Advantages and contradictions of virtual methods are considered by researchers in the field of cultural studies, museum studies, psychologists, etc. In 2003, the session of UNESCO adopted the Charter on Preservation of Digital Heritage. Art galleries and museums in 20th century began to transfer electronic copies works of art as a major museums now has its own e-portal or virtual museum in addition to the main exposition. The main forms of digital technologies includes e-form, electronic copies of traditional cultural stories such as electronic museums, libraries, exhibitions, databases, digital archiving, etc. Then electronic forms of new cultural objects which may eventually become objects of cultural heritage in e-form, similar to intangible cultural inputs, computer software, programs, networks, digital works of art and monuments. See 3D reconstructions, three-dimensional virtual historical reconstructions. Such computer reconstructions involve the creation of virtual 3D models giving information and virtual material for exploration of crucial historical figures, kings, monuments, and the history of heritage sites through the creation of electronic simulation models by robotics, 3D scanning, and machine learning algorithms. Laser scanning and photogrammetry are additional technologies history and establish a digital library for researchers and public education as well as enrich cultural vibrancy. Experts exert that lack of funding in these potential technologies and fallout of climate change induced by global warming, cultural sites are serious issues plaguing heritage conservation in India and rest of the world. Indeed, ma'am. World's largest democracy, the fifth largest economy, and military has a great soft its deep-rooted ancient and vibrant history and heritage respectfully. Technologies is vital to develop its soft power and also heritage conservation around the world, as India already is the of innovations. Speak of allocation of annual budgetary policies, innovations, heritage conservation network of technological centers across major Indian cities connected globally, professional expertise in heritage conservation technologies at university level, collaborations, programs, courses, camps, spreading awareness and emphasis amongst youth as enthusiasts and custodians of heritage, a combined inter-country initiative by G20 in conservation of local heritage structures which are either ignored, lost, or in ruined conditions, conducting exchange program, scientific conservation sciences for restoration and sustainable management. I conclude the significance of heritage and technology. The practical well-being 10% of world GDP, from cultural tourism. A legacy from generation of our ancestors passed down to us as inheritance. Therefore, especially we have a responsibility to preserve them as and advanced technologies. We must ensure this legacy reaches our future generations. Conservation also means conveying a strong message to the future that it's at least we can. As some of the architectural marvels of ancestors achieved years ago are still standing examples of inspiration, a mystery, a puzzle, even today to be scaled, discovered, solved, or to be achieved respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Harish. We now have Gadi Lingappa, PhD scholar, Visvesvaraya Technological University, Belagavi. He's going to talk to us about renewable energy, EVs, and batteries.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm propelling on the theme of renewable energy. As all we know, we have got immensely impacted by the greenhouse gases due to the aggressive usage of the non-renewable energy resources. We are living more and more carbon footprints, and we are pumping more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. In order to regulate these adverse impacts, we must transform our energy sector from non-renewable energy resources to the renewable energy resources. Not only just the energy sector, but the automobile sector is also adding more greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Perhaps approximately it is around 30 to 40% of the total greenhouse gases which we are pumping to the atmosphere. So in order to avoid these increasing carbon footprints, we have to adopt the more and more electric vehicles. But contrarily, the EVs is also having too many bottlenecks, such as the huge cost of the electric vehicles, which makes it unaffordable to the most of the public around the world. And on the other hand, with the growing population around the world, comparatively, the rate of inventions in science and technology on these concepts, especially on the renewable energies and the electric vehicles, the rate of inventions is little bit low comparative to the growing demands of the world. Of course, the many inventions and patents are claimed by the corporate companies and the private entities, which mainly focus on the financial parameters which benefits to them and to their company, unless the returns from their inventions has not received in back, then the new technology cannot be unveiled. Due to this, the fruit of the inventions cannot be received by the public. Even though few organizations in the world, in the country and in the world are relentlessly working for the sake of the inventions, but those are not in par with the rising demands of the modern world. So we have to focus on the three key factors. That is, one is from usage of more and more renewable energies. And the second is to make the public and the fleet owners to use the electric vehicles. And the third one is encouraging and creating a platform for the new inventions, which helps globally. Now, let's look the legacy of the G20 in this current vertical. In 2008 G20 summit, the initial proposals on the clean energy was proposed by the Brazil's finance minister. And in 2016, the G20 framed its commitment in the 2030 agenda, that is SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, is also known as the global goals, with the three key themes. This 2030 agenda contains 17 interconnected objectives. Out of these 17 interconnected objectives, one was dealing with the ensuring access to affordable and reliable and sustainable and the modern energy for all. And in the year 2022, G20 summit, which is held in Indonesia, had also focused on the sustainable energy transition. Almost every country in G20 are driving towards the sustainable renewable energy resources, such as they are getting alliance with the International Solar Alliance, which came up with the theme of one sun, one world, one grid, and A to Z coalition, that is accelerating to zero pollution, and ZDVTC, and many more things are there. But where we are lagging, even after this so much of the struggles and hard work, the renewable energy resources is an intermittent supplier of the energy. Of course, it is not perennial, so a large scale of the batteries are required. And while coming to the electric vehicles, many people are not in a position to buy the electric vehicles because of its huge cost of the vehicles. Now, I want to propose an agenda for the G20 to have an inclusive science technical concept. Only few countries in the world have the lithium resources, and due to which the cost of the lithium is very high. Recently, India has found its huge lithium resources of around 5.9 million tons of resources. The 5.9 million tons of the lithium is a very huge resources. By using these resources, we can manufacture around 7.7 billion cars, battery units, or 2.2 billion electric bike units by using these resources. India, as a member country of the G20, which is holding the presidency in the year 2013, which came with the theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is one earth, one family, and one future. By this, the India is clearly saying that it is ready to extend its helping hands to the globe by distributing its natural available resources. The G20 has to come forward to create a clean platform such that the resources in the India has to be distributed to the world in a very pleasant manner. It is the high time that the G20 should focus more on creating a platform for the new inventions in science and technology. G20 should promote and encourage by creating more incubation centers globally, and inventions are to be made in science and technology. Okay, I would like to submit my humble in my concluding remarks that G20 should now have a progressive agenda of EVs and battery technologies for the sustainable growth and clean and green energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now have Ritanya talking to us. She's a postgraduate scholar, University of Mysore.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll be presenting on the topic of preservation of cultural heritage of indigenous community. Indigenous community conserve about 70 to 80% of world's remaining biodiversity. They possess crucial knowledge about how to manage natural resources sustainably and act as custodians of the land for the next generations. So if we have to talk about what was discussed in the previous G20 declarations, at the Indonesian G20 declaration of Bali, they have mentioned the role of culture as a driver for sustainable development. It states to respect, protect, and preserve the cultural heritage of indigenous community by supporting public incentives and sustainable investments from the private sector to strengthen the cultural economy. And in the previous declarations of Italy's presidency, gender inequality among the indigenous community was discussed. And if we have to discuss about the current measures which are taken in order to preserve the cultural heritage of indigenous community, efforts to preserve traditional knowledge and practices of indigenous community through documentation, archives, and digitization, protection of indigenous cultural heritage sites and monuments through legal and administrative measures, promoting indigenous languages, music, dance, and educate and spread the awareness of culture, setting up of indigenous cultural institutions, involving the indigenous people in decision-making of all aspects of heritage conservation and through the international agreements and conventions. We as a global youth should think of few measures which can be taken that can help in conservation or prevention. I would like to list down few measures which we can take. That would be supporting the indigenous businesses such as artisanal crafts, clothing, and food products, advocating for rights of indigenous people in fighting for land rights and recognition of indigenous language and culture and protection of heritage sites. Using the powerful tool of today's, that is the social media, to share articles, videos, and other resources that promote understanding and respect for indigenous people and their cultural practices. We can also involve a unique way of promoting sustainable tourism that involves developing tourism activities that respect indigenous culture and traditions, and also by establishing cultural centers to showcase their art, music, and dance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritanya. We now have a last speaker for this session, Kavya. She's also doing her master's in University of Mysore. She's going to talk to us about an ecosystem for disaster management, building a resilient world equipped to deal with such disasters.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to talk here. As the topic mentioned, disaster management is one of the important sector or area to focus. The effect of climate change is felt through the increasing number of disasters occurring across the world. Added to the natural causes, human activities contribute to the worsened state of climate. In this regard, it is of the utmost important to create and build a disaster management system which is resilient and sustainable in the future. What I will do is, I will look into past 3 years G20 summits and what they have discussed on disaster management. Firstly, under Saudi Arabian Presidency 2020, it was said that Responding to natural disaster and extreme weather events is among the priorities, and G20 committed to the same. And under Italy presidency 2021, G20 reaffirmed the shared ambition to achieve 50% reduction of degraded land by 2040 on a voluntary basis. Thirdly, under Indonesia's presidency 2022, it was said that nature-based solution and ecosystem-based approaches would be adopted in order to reduce natural disaster and also ecosystem degradation. Responding to natural disaster was also part of the presidency priority. Finally, as per my knowledge, what best action Indian presidency can take to support G20 countries in managing the disaster impact? India's G20 team need to give importance in creating disaster management team, which the efficiency of taking the immediate action during the disasters. They should be trained in such a way to take a effective action to manage the disaster impact, which can help in preventing further damage. And Indian presidency should encourage on producing latest technology in disaster management, like using the drones. The drones to supply medicines and to identify the disaster impact and the victims. And the satellite to get the prior information before the disaster, like weather conditions, tsunami, etc. And we need to focus on building more disaster-proof buildings, especially in the disaster-prone areas. And we need to encourage in developing more user-friendly app, which will give the early signs of disaster. Last but not the least, we should motivate and educate the youths to take the voluntary action during the disaster. And we should create awareness regarding all of the above through social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavya. A range of topics that are of global importance have been covered by the speakers, as we have seen here. I thank them for raising these important topics at a crucial juncture and paving way for food for thought and more fruitful discussions. I now invite our discussants to provide a critical perspective of the topics discussed. Please note that the discussants will have only a minute. I know that this is a short time. However, you will be able to put across a critical perspective briefly, and that would be effective. After that, we will proceed to question and answer session. And I will request the discussants to come now. Femi. All right, we have 4 discussants: Femi, Immaculate, Shrija, and Nitish. You can. Femi, please note that we just have a minute or a half.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate the exemplary scholars for sharing their visionary initiative for the G20 event. More than suggestion, I have appreciation for the plethora of topics that you chose to enlighten us. My first suggestion is for Renuka. First of all, amazing initiative on the solar agriculture system. I would like you to focus more on the issue of the variable of storing solar power. If you know, just being sustainable, there is a much bigger need to find an alternative to store this energy, because which can be essentially be harmful to climate. On the similar line, I have a similar suggestion to Varsha, who talk about single-use plastic. For her as well, I feel like we need to find an alternative to the use of cardboard or other paper-based vessels, because that actually require more water. So as a country together, we need to come together and find a better alternative to make all of these sustainable suggestions further sustainable. I would also like to appreciate Hari for talking about the need to expand on the resources and the development of in the space sector, as well as Akriti for talking about bridging the gap between the developing countries. With that, thank you so much, and thank you for your presentations.
Nitishi.
Good afternoon, all. I thank the panel for providing us insightful suggestions for the following G20. While listening to the presentations, for Harini Madhusudan, I was thinking maybe you could have provided more insight into what sort of mechanisms that the G20 countries can undertake to manage space debris, because it not only stops the satellites to go into space, like in the sense it crowds the space. Maybe you could have provided more insight into that. And I really enjoyed Gadling Abba's presentation on electronic vehicles. He said that he spoke about sharing resources, and maybe you could have provided more insight into what India can do to lead the G20 countries in providing a platform for collaboration and share technologies when it comes to electric vehicles, because as we all know, the electric chargers, they differ for each companies of cars. So maybe India can lead as a great manufacturing leader when it comes to electric chargers. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitishi. I will now invite Shrija for comments.
Good afternoon, all. I would like to congratulate all the presenters who have done really a good job in presenting various topics, and all these topics are extremely relevant considering the important juncture of climate change and global warming we are going through. An important buzzword that was keep coming up in all your presentations was sustainability that I have observed. And first, I would like to appreciate Harini Madhusudan for the presentation. I would like to know about privatization of space and how it could, how India recently produced a space policy brief where it talked about privatization of space. So how that concept could help for more actions in the space in terms of sustainability, and how the debris could be managed. I would like to know more about that. And then regarding maritime governance, I would like to know more about what are the governance measures, what are the gaps that are in the existing governance measures, and what more could be done in terms of maritime governance, because maritime is becoming more important and oceans should be used sustainably. And okay, that's all what I would like to know, and thank you for all the presentations.
I now invite Immaculate for providing her comments.
Good afternoon, all. I thank you for the organizers to organize such an event and allowing the youngsters to put up their perspectives on a very vast event like G20. I thank all the presenters for the wonderful work they have done. I have one question in the presentation on space technology and governance for Harini. I just would like to know more about how the recent India space policy could be a lead to the G20 countries, and what are the prospects for it, how it could further increase and be a forerunner for the other G20 countries. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, speakers and discussants. On an important note, prior to concluding this session, I would like to ask if the faculty here have any inputs for the young scholars. Yes.
Good afternoon, good evening. I am Professor Meva Singh from University of Mysore, work here in this building. I just want to convey one message to all the speakers. You have been emphasizing on conservation. I am a conservation biologist. I work in forestry and I work on wildlife. And I've spent for almost 4 decades or more than 4 decades. I've seen all Indian jungles. I've seen all Indian wildlife in mainland India and also in the Nicobar Islands. I think the message should be that you have to go one step beyond. We are no more happy or contented with conservation. Conservation, sustainable use of natural resources, we have already finished most of them. So please understand that today is not the need for conservation, but today the demand is for replenishment. Today the demand is for ecological restoration. So please understand that restoration and replenishment should be the keywords for recommendations, no more conservation. Thank you.
Do we have any more inputs from the faculty? All right. With that, we conclude the session, and I hope that all the speakers who have presented today take these inputs seriously and incorporate in their papers. Prior to moving to the next session, I would like to invite the speakers and the senior faculty for a photograph, please, with the expert panel. Yes.
Stand in front of them. The photographer will adjust it. You're so bright. You are going to make all of us dull. Some of you move in the side. Kavya, don't go that side. Anu Maria, come. You are the starlet. Touch me. Come. Come, woman. Okay, I think that's good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Sendil, five chairs. Give some space. Okay, may I kindly request the panel to be seated? No, the chairs and the seats are coming. May I also request Bharati to join the panel? In this session, what we will do as experts, we have Dr. Chari, Professor Rangappa, and Dr. Krishna Prasad with us. You listen to the young scholars. You might have heard about this when you talk about democracy by the people, for the people, of the people. After listening to them, it looks like G20 by the youth, for the youth, of the youth. No? I think you should give a big round of applause for all the young scholars. It is easy to write a long assignment, in 20 pages, 30 pages, or even a dissertation. It's not easy to make a point in 3 minutes. And in 3 minutes, they said what the issues are, what G20 has done, and what G20 can do. I think they did a remarkable job in 3 minutes, keeping in mind some of them are postgraduate scholars, not even finished their post-graduation yet. It looks like we are on the right track. So my request to the panel is you listen to them, Chari Saab, Rangappa Saab, and Krishna Prasad Saab. You listen to them. You listen to their recommendations also. But as young scholars, sometimes there is also an element of enthusiasm, also an element of over enthusiasm. So what is doable and what they can do further in their ideas, how their thoughts can be put into action, how it could be concretized. Because the next plan of action for this team, we are asking them to give a small note to us as a policy recommendation that we could submit to the RIS and the G20. So how they could improve their note. That's my first request to you, how they could improve. And I'm sure you may want to make suggestions. That's the first request. Second request, keeping in your own experience, what else we could do? Maybe there are only 10 scholars. Many more things we could do. Especially Dr. Chari, you have a global, all of you, you all have a global understanding, view, and you have traveled widely. What else they could do? Today we had only 10 people talking to us. Maybe tomorrow it will be 20, day after it may be 30. So that what else we could do? So that could be one of your recommendation. The third one, this is especially to Dr. Chari. Sir, you heard us talking to, you heard them, 10 of us speaking to in 1 hour. Shall we think in terms of a 3 days or a 4 days? Get people from all over the country. This is only 6 or 8 institutions from South India. why not we host them in Mysore? Maybe a 3 days, 4 days. Why don't we get, since you talked about 76 universities, why don't we get 76 scholars looking at 76 issues, looking on a kind of a residential workshop on 3 or 4 days. I'm sure if 1 hour can bring this much, maybe 3 days can bring something more than that. Maybe this we request you to consider, sir, and then whether this is doable and whether we can do it in Mysore or in Bangalore. We'll be very happy. You saw the infrastructure here, the enthusiasm here that we should be able to do. And one more recommendation on this is how we can connect. Today you saw that from south of India, let us go national and let's also go international. Is there any way this group can get connected with other similar scholars from other G20 countries? Would that be possible in the next, not in this time, maybe in the near future, where we will be able to host in Mysore or in Bangalore or in Chennai, some scholars from other G20 countries like them, and whether we could create a network and then let that network go on its own. Since we are talking about U20, why should that U20 be only based in India? Let that be G20 U20. Whether that is something that we could consider. And last one, on a lighter note, don't take this very seriously. Maybe you should give some recommendation to have more men in this generation on the floor. It looks like that it's a welcome development. I'm sure everyone would agree it's a welcome development, and special cheers to all the panelists for making it. Maybe we should also need a gender balance in this generation when we talk about G20. With that note, may I first request Dr. Chari to kickstart the expert panel discussion. Over to you, sir. May I request 15 to 20 minutes each so that we'll take some Q&A for all three of you, please.
Yeah, no. I think your idea of going there was better. Thank you for this presentation. There are going to be 3 aspects as far as this particular session is concerned. I think I will go from there. This is actually a 3-in-1 session, and we are almost trying to conclude the sessions because according to the paper that is given to me here, 5 to 5:10 is concluding session. First of all these scholars who have presented their opinions and views, in all 9 of them, each and every one of you have really done justice to the subject and excellent suggestions, excellent presentation, excellent suggestions. And as I told in the earlier session also, I'm not an expert on many of these issues. In fact, I'm not an expert on any of these issues. Why many? So, but there are some points which require further extension. For example, Akriti Sharma mentioned about climate change And did you mention anything about the use of fuel? I don't remember. But basically climate change and how to tackle that issue. Now, climate change issue, I think you have to do a little more research on the use of hydrogen as a future fuel. It's not important only to limit ourselves to an alternative for fossil fuel. We will have to go in for the hydrogen as a fuel. That's going to be quite a game changer for us. And as far as energy is concerned, besides hydrogen, we are all forgetting that India has the maximum raw material as far as thorium is concerned. So the third cycle of nuclear progress that we have already made so far involves thorium-fueled fast breeder reactors. So that is one technology where we have to do a lot of good work. So that is one area where we need more people to do research, especially with those who have science and chemistry background, especially physics and chemistry background. Incidentally, Dr. Angappa was mentioning that more students will have to come to the science stream, which was earlier the trend, which now, unfortunately, we are not seeing it that way. But I have to tell you, sir, I'm part of the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. We find that those students who come for our courses, that is humanities courses, especially geopolitics and international relations, nearly 50 to 60% of them are from the science stream, science and engineering stream, which in itself is a good sign. So this one area is something very important. I have to also mention about, Harini mentioned about space, the first presentation. There are two major problems that we are going to face as far as outer space is concerned. Rather, I would say three. One is the global regime for use of space routes. So that is going to be a huge problem. Licensing is going to be a very big problem. You will have to look into that also. Second is asteroid mining. There are so many asteroids and we do not even know what are the contents of those asteroids as of now. And already there is a unholy haste to do asteroid mining. China and USA are considered to be pioneers in this, but we do not know how much they are doing, what they are doing. And we do not even know what material asteroids have got and how they are going to be either helpful or disastrous for us. So in the process of asteroid mining, suppose some space vehicle brings some material which is going to sort of explode at the moment it touches the Earth's stratospace. What happens? One part of the world goes up in flames. We do not know. I'm not saying this is not a prophecy, but I think there has to be more global discussion and debate as far as asteroid mining is concerned. And the third and the most important thing, which already we are discussing as far as outer space is concerned, is the trash, is the kind of space debris that we are creating. So this space debris is also going to be a huge problem someday or the other. It's already a problem, so we will have to work on it. I'm not going into the details of space platform and all that. That's already come under political these things. There are other issues as far as maritime governance is concerned. Oceans, of course, play a very important role as far as the climate circulation is concerned. And oceans need an amount of some degree of heat is required as far as the ocean is concerned, so that water gets evaporated, and then the cycle of water evaporation cloud formation and rain. It goes on. But if the ocean gets heated beyond a certain limit, that gives rise to cyclones. I'm not an expert. Again, Dr. Rangappa may correct me if I'm wrong. I think 28 degrees centigrade is what is supposed to be the maximum temperature for an ocean to be heated. The moment it goes up by 1 degree, that is 29 degree, the moment it goes to 29th degree, there is a depression created in and around that area which gets 29 degrees centigrade, and then cyclones are formed. So probably if we are all sitting in this room, the temperature here must be probably 30, right? So we are all sitting in the eye of a storm. Fortunately, we are not in an ocean, it's different. But this is the kind of temperature increase. So 1 degree increase in temperature is enough to create havoc. Now look at it the other way around. Suppose if we are able to reduce the temperature of ocean by just 1 degree, why not we think in terms of a technology which will reduce temperature by 1 degree? We can map the oceans. Now ocean mapping is very easy and very possible. So we map the ocean, keep the temperature steady constantly, and what they call the ocean temperature stabilization technology. So we increase this idea of ocean temperature stabilization technology, and wherever there is an increase in temperature, we do something so that the temperature comes down. There's some trials are taking place. I will not go into those details now, but we can share some of these papers from any time. The other subjects are all very important actually, heritage conservation and natural habitat. So these are all important subjects. And remember, India is the only country which has got all kinds of weather conditions. And we say 10 directions, just not 4. North, east, south, west. We say 10 disha. So we have got 10 dishaएं. We have 6 ritu, not just summer, winter, rain. We have got 6 ritus, and we have got a lot of such calculations. Our tradition, our culture is seeped in not only understanding nature, but living with nature. So what has happened that this nature is being devastated? So what we have to work on is to go back to the roots, to find out the cause which has resulted in this kind of a disastrous effect. And all the papers presented should also look into one aspect. Whatever we do, our commitment is to the world, no doubt about it, but our unquestioned commitment is also to India. Can we have these experiments conducted in India so that we become the laboratory of finding solutions to the problems that are haunting the globe? Because if you see the whole idea of G20, the G20 idea is about global development. Although, as I said earlier, it started as a solution, trying to find a solution for the financial problems of the world. So the developed world and the developing world, they all came together and thought that we are facing serious problems. Now, there is a very funny way of looking at problems. When Asian tigers issue happened, we all know about Asian tigers. So when all the Asian tigers flopped because of flying geese syndrome, what happened? People said Asian tigers have failed. Nobody said it's a global failure. But one bank in USA went bankrupt and it all became a global problem. Global economic crisis. Was it really a global economic crisis? Was every country in the world, every banking transaction in the world, was it linked only to that one particular bank, the Lehman Brothers, which went bankrupt? No, never. So this is how problems of the world have been presented. A problem of one country becomes the global problem. Problems of 198 countries does not become a global problem. So we have to now look at global problems in a different perspective. Are global problems really global? Is it because everyone in the globe have contributed to the problem? Was the First World War and the Second World War global problems? Or they were ego clashes between two countries? Was the Cold War a global problem? Or it was just an ego clash between two ideologies, two dogmas? This is what we have to see. So if you look at G20 from this point of view, it's very clear that the globe, the world can no longer be divided into North and South alone. The world cannot be divided into developed and the developing nations alone. Every country in the world has now become a developing economy, an emerging economy. India is the fourth largest economy in the world. And the jostling for power, position, the contestation for superpower post, the contestation for who will lead the world, the contestation for presiding over the development of the world, it has all come down with a basically drastic changes that have happened. There was a time when strength of the country, oh, thank you. That was really a great thing. I couldn't see the face of so many people. I don't know if they are sleeping or awake. If you see, the strength of a nation was calculated on the basis of the geography they possessed. This is what happened as far as the colonial period was concerned. So the colonies, which, can you put off this slide, please? The colonies which were holding to geographies were considered to be the strong nations. So that is how they say the British sun never sets. Sun never sets on the British soil. So if the British had such a huge empire, so many colonies, so many countries under them, that 90% of the resources of the world were theirs because they were controlling 90% of the geography of the world. What is their situation today? Today, will somebody say that controlling geography or sitting over huge amount of mass on the earth is strength? Nobody says that. The strongest country does not have any such parameter. Then a time came when not holding geography, but how greatly weaponized you are, the strength of your army and the power of subjugation, the power of destruction that you can make. America was a great country, great power, because they could drop an atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and destroy the whole place. So the more destructive you are, more powerful you are. Strange. Please go back to history and read all these things. So there was an amount of madness, as we call, MAD, mutually assured destruction. So one country says, I have got so much weapons that I can assure that I'll destroy you. The other country says, I have got much more weapons than what you have. I assure you that I will destroy you. So this mutually assured destruction, MAD, became the parameter of power. Today, there is again a similar power contestation between two countries. The power contestation is on what basis? One is 25 trillion economy and one is 15 trillion economy. So the contest is between who is rich, whose economy is powerful. So in all the three, one factor is common. What is that? Utilization of the resources that are available for the entire world only for the purpose of one country. How I am able to utilize maximum resources of the universe for my sake, for my self-interest, determines how powerful I am. So if you are very powerful, if you are able to set up company in every country in Africa and get all the resources that are in Africa, ship them to your country. What happens to the people of Africa? You don't bother. They die, they are killed, nothing happens. If they don't clash between themselves, create a problem so that they will fight among themselves, so that your loot goes on. This attitude is what is determining the strength of the country. It is in this background that India has decided to give a different viewpoint of looking at the world. I'm not saying the world is accepting it, but today, because India is saying it, India has been able to establish itself as a power that seeks not destruction, but construction. Not exploitation, but utilization. Take only as much as is due to you and as much as you require. Rest, give up. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Take what is yours and take what is necessary. So what happens is, how much you develop is not on the basis of what you consume. They say there are differences. Development is different, progress is different, growth is different. They are not the same. So when you say developed world, is it a grown world? Have they grown up? They just developed. Excessive growth is also not good. And lopsided growth is bad. Excessive and lopsided growth of a cell is called cancer. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, doctor, you should know better. So merely growing is not progress. And mere progress, if I think I'm walking straight and leading to my destination, and if I'm not actually leading to my destination, the distance that I've walked is not progress, it is regression, not progression. So progress, growth, and development are subject to conditions, subject to the truth and reality of the situation. So how are we looking at development? India has put in an idea that we don't want to look at development as someone who is giving and someone is as receiving. We don't classify ourselves as a donor country. We don't classify ourselves as a country which gives aid. What we have started using is growth partnership, developmental partnership assistance. So we give money not as a giver, but as a partner in development. So if some country develops because of my efforts, it is a joint development. Unfortunately, there are all the issues that were discussed here, some of the technological issues that were discussed here. What we have seen is West developed technology, but they never shared that technology. They sold their technology and sold at a price. It was a barter, bartering your sovereignty with my technology. If you want my technology, be subservient to me. Be part of my grouping. If you are part of some other grouping, I will deny you technology. So this idea, that is why in 1974, when we tested the first nuclear Pokhran test, which we conducted, next year it will be 50 years of our Pokhran test. This year is the 25th year of 1998 test, incidentally. When we tested in 1974, the Americans said that you will be restrained. We will not give you technology. We will see to it that nobody else also gives you technology. So restraining India, we will isolate you. We will see to it that you don't get support from any country in the world. You will be treated as a pariah, isolate you, and we will punish you. Restraint, isolation, and punishment. That is why they coined this RIP India. RIP India. Why? Because you proved to the world, and it was a peaceful nuclear explosion, PNE. Even though it was a PNE, they said you have done something. That is why our scientists had to work hard, day and night. And finally, in 1998, when we tested not only peaceful explosion, but we also tested and proved to the world that we have got weapons grade uranium. So this determination with which we have worked, and we have worked not for ourselves, but for other countries. So wherever India is involved, we work for others, because we essentially believe that just as the problems of the world are universal, the truth that persists in the world is also universal. Ekam sat vipra bahuda badanti, we say. And the entire world, according to West, is a market. But for us, the entire world is one family. We don't look at the world as a market. We don't look at the world as an area for exploitation. We look at the world as a family. If one member of the family is unhappy, the whole family is unhappy. If one member of the family is hungry, the entire family is responsible for it. So that idea of family, that idea of one universe, and this is the only universe we have, and the future of the universe is going to be our future, not somebody else's future. So to guarantee a good future, we are working together. Now G20 summit will take place in September, but the agenda of G20 will not be finished in September. We should all remember that along with G20, we are also working on Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And all the subjects that you have discussed here, they are all part and parcel of one or the other of the 17 SDGs. So I would suggest that we link these subjects to the relevant SDG. Sometimes it could be more than one or two SDGs also. But all the subjects come under SDG. And India is committed to work. It's difficult. I'm not being pessimistic. But in 2000, no country in the world achieved the Millennium Development Goals. MDG, nobody achieved. So it took almost 15 years for the world community to come together and decide upon the next phase. That is why in 2015, we decided the 17 goals. These 17 goals, the time frame that was given was 2030. But in between, we had huge amounts of problems. One was the coronavirus pandemic, which almost ruined the economy of the entire world. And then the conflicts that are now taking place. The conflicts are also having a huge toll as far as economy is concerned and as far as the goals are concerned. But still, we cannot forget, we may not achieve in 2030, but can India think in terms of achieving as much as possible as far as these 17 goals are concerned is one. Two, 2023, India is the president of G20. 2024, the presidency will be handed over to Brazil. And 2025, the presidency will be handed over to South Africa. Now, these three countries, representing three continents and representing three democracies, also have another forum called IBSA, IBSA, India, Brazil, South Africa. Now, IBSA represents almost 1/3 of the population of the world, 1/3 of the resources of the world. Collectively, they contribute something like 23% of the GDP of the world. So can we take forward this entire issue of G20 plus SDGs to the next session, wherein, if not 2030, but at least by 2050, we are able to achieve the SDGs and make this world a better world, a livable world, a peaceful world, and a world which looks at development and growth for all. Because that is another area where India has always projected views as Sarvepi Santu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha. Let everybody be happy. We never said only our people should be happy. My government should be happy. My people should be happy. My citizens should be happy. No. It's Sarvepi Santu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya. That is the message that we have given through vaccine diplomacy. When we gave vaccination against coronavirus to a number of countries, there were some countries which could not pay, but we said, we are not asking you to pay. Take the vaccine, treat it, save your people. So this idea of projecting a solution for the whole world, there are global problems. We have to look for local solutions. This is the suggestion that G20 has to give to the world and continue this whole process through SDGs and then further continue this through so many other institutions which will be forming from time to time. So I congratulate all the students, young scholars who have actually presented their papers and suggestions, and some of these papers and suggestions are far better. So you qualify for both the words that have been used as an adage for you, young and scholars. You are all young, of course, no doubt about it. And you are all very scholarly presentation you have made. And as far as Dr. Chandran's suggestion of a 3-day conference is concerned, I would really request you to think about it, work on it, put up a paper. We will seriously consider it. Maybe sometime in October, November, December, that will be the right time when we could do probably all these things. And in 2023 itself, we can think of this, and it should be a 3-day seminar, and we should be able to really bring out a good document the suggestions so that we can present it not only to the government of India, but also to the G20 Secretariat and also to the United Nations as far as SDGs are concerned. So we will have to aim at G20, SDG, and then a global framework for development as India's viewpoint. That is the Indian worldview that we have to present to the world, and we take that suggestion seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With the critique of the young scholars presentation, and then you also went and you tried to tell us the larger idea behind G20. You emphasized on family repeatedly, one family. I think that also goes well with the larger G20 slogan that we have. And you also linked G20 with SDG, and you also said it's a process. I think that's a great thing to that's a great message. Let's not stop with G20. Let's look at the bigger picture in front of us. And you also positively responded to that point. So let's look into that, sir. Thank you so much. Now may I request Professor Rangappa. For my 10 minutes. Very difficult. Thank you.
I don't give any speech. I come to the point of recommendations. That's all. As for the, I'm a scientist. I'm a science man. I'll straight away talk whatever I feel. Dear, friends, we have been hearing since morning about the G20 University Connect, engaging young minds. We need young minds. That's the ultimate. The young minds who gave presentations, all these 9 scholars presented very well. My appreciation and also congratulations to all of you. Out of 9, somebody spoke about science, a little, not much at all. But the others, renewable energy and so on, it was excellent. All the 9 speakers gave us, of course, good information and how one can recommend to the G20. Certainly they are useful suggestions, recommendations to G20 by those 9 scholars. Somebody mentioned very little science. Science should not be little. Every country is based on science. Without science, no country can be progressed on the earth. This is my understanding of 68 years. I have been involved in science for the last 45 years. Science is my blood. Scenario of science and technology in India, competing, we are developing countries, developed countries. There are many nations. We should think about this science. Always, you go to any country in the whole world, where there is no science, that country is not at all progressed. When I say the country is progressed, means there is a good science, there is a good innovations, there is a good research, there is a good higher education. Without education, higher education, research and development, and science, no country can be progressed. At the same time, I don't discourage other social sciences at all, like economics, like business administration and politics and so on. But today, everything is based on science. That's the reason I had to make certain points very clear to G20 for the recommendations. Nowadays, if you look at the GDP for science in this country, it's the lowest of the lowest. Lowest of the lowest. But still, we scientists are doing better job. Really, the GDP compared to United States, North America, China, Korea, you mention any countries, our GDP is lowest of the lowest. That should not happen. We must give good GDP on par with the other countries to sustain science, so sustain research and development in this country. Take, for example, you said for the last 3 years, we have been worrying about the pandemic. Unless the Indian science is found or investigated these vaccines within 6 months, 8 months, what could be the fate of the Indians? Therefore, we need to give importance for this. GDP should be higher. If you take in terms of the research activities, if you take in terms of the research innovations and so on, we are very considerable. Therefore, we must encourage, we must request the G20 to see that the GDP must be kept very high. Now, I'll give you one example. I'm working in the area of drug discovery. Is a chemistry part of the drug discovery is a part of the chemistry. Now, every medicine we go buy from the Western countries. Probably if we don't give interest in the area of drug discovery, you cannot think of these poor people in this country. 60 to 70% of the people are poor. They cannot afford. Therefore, we should have our indigenous, which means we need support, which means we need finance. Therefore, in order to support this 60 to 70%, then only this country can be progressed. We need to support them. Of course, when 10% can afford the medicines, whatever, from outside the country. But how about these poor people? Therefore, the G20 must make sure that the more importance should be given to the R&D in the area of drug discovery program. It's very difficult. It's now order of the day. There are intelligence. I have been working in several countries. Even today, I work 10 different universities, including MIT. But the Indians have the best brain. Indians have the best culture. Let's make use of this culture. Let's make use of the Indian brain in this way. So therefore, nowadays, as I mentioned, we are not, every research is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. You must have the concept of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach, not only within India, outside the country. We must inculcate such qualities to have collaboration in terms of research and development with various countries. That's what we call interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary research. Therefore, we are fortunate. We are far away from any other countries in terms of the computer science and information science. What do you do when you don't develop this science? You cannot do anything. Therefore, this information science, what we have, the Indians, we computer science, we must make use of this concept to the science scenario. That's the main concept of my recommendations today. We must encourage science. We must tell every university, as I said, the students are, rarely joining the science courses. Very rare, because they are not given incentives. The bright students are going abroad. The brain drain is happening. The India must cultivate the habit of considering the merit. You should keep the meritorious students intact in this country. Provide all the opportunities, provide all the encouragements, provide all the necessary requirements. Then they don't go. Why do they go? Because they have good opportunity in terms of everything. Therefore, India must think of this brain drain, and you must have these youngsters to be with us. As I said, they are the nation builders. Therefore, we must encourage the youngsters and support them in every possibility. I'm not telling we should support every damn Dick Harry. We must support those who are really intelligent, those who are doing really good by virtue of their educational qualifications and so on. So this is how my plea, my humble request to G20 to recommend the GDP level should go up, and we must encourage the science and technology, science, R&D, and particularly in the area of chemistry. That's drug discovery program. Because I'm a chemist, I'm a scientist. Therefore, in fact, all the young boys who given us the information, they are excellent. Considering those recommendations, this is also should be one of the recommendations. That's my request. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you, sir. Both times, we agree with you. Maybe a small footnote to be more critical science also. But we also talked about multidisciplinary. I think that's the most important part. We need science. Maybe what he's trying to access is look at all other disciplines from a science and technology perspective or tools. I think that's a very strategy that we work at. I'm sure we would take it seriously. Now may I invite the Dr. Krishna.
Namaste and good evening, everyone. Honorable guests on the dais, distinguished guests of the dais, young delegates. First of all, I congratulate all the scholars for their wonderful presentation and the innovative ideas. At this G20, India's presidency of healing, harmony, and hope, I take this opportunity to speak on the sustainable healthcare. You call it as a human conservation, or one of our professors said about restoration. So I'm going to talk on health in particular. And me being an Ayurveda doctor, I would like to speak on how Ayurveda can be a very sustainable healthcare system and need of the hour. You all know that Ayurveda is a holistic Indian system of medicine. It is India's very rich and valuable heritage and culture. And Ayurveda encompasses the philosophical, spiritual, and the psychosomatic perspectives of the human health. It's a comprehensive healthcare Now it talks about the healthy food and the lifestyle. The very objective of Ayurveda is swasthasya swasthya rakshanam aturasya vikara prashamanam. Maintenance of health in a healthy individual is very important, which is preventive. Aturasya vikara prashamanam, curing diseases of an unhealthy, which is a curative approach. Please note that both these perspectives are of very much sustainable in nature. How? Let's look into how the healthy lifestyle that Ayurveda recommends and the unhealthy practices that we are doing. Ayurveda enunciates that many illnesses can be prevented by healthy and disciplined food habits alone. It emphasizes on the systematic food habits, involvement of Tanu, Mana and Panchendriyas, mind, body and 5 senses. The World Health Organization recently has observed that, watching TV, mobiles while having food, not concentrating on the food is one of the most important cause for the brain damage. Which is what is said in Ayurveda. Kale satma shuchir hitam, snignosna lagu tan mana. Tanu and mana, the involvement of tanu, body, and mana, mind, in having food. It has told as, the rules of food intake, your indulgence, your focus on food intake is not just, it is a rule of food intake. That is what is said in Ayurveda. Kale, timely food. It's time, having food at the proper time is an absolute necessary. Repeated disturbances in the biological clock can lead to many illnesses, right from gastritis, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, or even to the cancers, just because you are not having food at the proper time. Not just that, having the proper digestion, assimilation, and metabolism of the food is very important for the maintenance of health. Rogaha sarvepi mandagnam. The very root cause of all the diseases is indigestion. So the very proper digestion of the food alone can maintain the health. So not just that one, but the proper quality and the quantity of food. It stresses on the significance of proper digestion. Let food be the medicine is the mantra of Ayurveda. Food. Ayurveda always identifies the medicinal values in the food, spices, and the herbs. Take for instance, ginger. Ginger is a very good digestive. There is no other better antibiotic for the GI issues than the ginger. Garlic is a very good for reducing cholesterol. It can remove the clogging in the arteries. Garlic alone. Cinnamon, chakke. It's a very good nerve tonic. It can restore the health of the nerve. Cumin, which is very rich in antioxidant properties, is a very good carbonative, digestive, antipyretic, and it can treat gastritis. Turmeric, I need not say, is a very potent anti-cancerous drug. It's an anti-allergic drug. It's a good immune booster. Pepper, long pepper, again, very good appetizer, very good digestive. It increases the bioavailability of the other medicines. Coriander. Why I'm talking all those things is, it is there in your kitchen. It is there at your homes. So please, feel the medicinal values and the importance of it. Coriander can protect your kidneys. Coriander alone can balance the thyroid hormone, which is the principal hormone. I need not tell about holy basil or the tulsi, which is an elixir of life. It's a sacred plant before every house in India. This is a very good antiviral, antibacterial, antimicrobial, anti-malarial, antipyretic. What else you want? Neem, a potent antiviral. That is why you have, neem leaves. The air of the neem leaves can prevent viral infections. Fenugreek, Menthia, is a very good anti-diabetic agent. Ashwagandha, a potent strength drug and good for weight gain. We have ashgard for weight loss. We have snake guard for skin health. We have bitter gourd for diabetic problems. We have bottle gourd for the cardiac health. Bottle gourd can protect your heart. So what I mean to say is, all these guards your health. Do you need more other medicines? You have all these at your fingertips. And you please note, all these are bio-friendly. All these are biocompatible. They are good for your body. Let's look at the, and I must tell, there are no side effects, or if the side effects are there, very much negligible. And all this falls in the frame of sustainable perspectives or parameters. On the other hand, let's look into other conventional medicines, which are synthetic chemical medicines. There is a saying, there is a pill for every illness, and there is an ill followed by the pill. Look at the antibiotics that is commonly used. This can disrupt the gut balance, can kill the good germs in the body, can cause from a simple side effects to a serious side effects. Look at the painkillers that is very rampantly used, randomly used. It can bring irregularities in the heart. Steroids. It can induce diabetes. Chemo drugs, it can damage any organ, right from heart, kidney, liver, whatever. So, not just that, it can even hamper the memory, thinking of a human being. So what I meant to say is, the medication side effects can bring new illnesses, and these are away from the sustainable perspectives. Yeah. And look at the what we are taking through food are fruits and vegetables. Pesticides. Pesticides can damage the nerves, can bring nerve disorders in children and to the elderly. It can cause ADHD disorder, a nerve disorder in children, and a Parkinson's disorder in elderly. Preservatives in the food, which contains nitrosamines, they can transform into carcinogenic agents. They can bring cancer. So the air, the water, and the food what we are taking has one or the other ill effects on the body or toxic effects on the body. Then how can we prevent ourselves from the toxic effects of these things, medicines or food or the fruits? Ayurveda has these preventive and curative measures. How? You all know massage. Massage is not an amusement. It's not an amusement measure. It's a very scientific therapy which can increase immunity in you, which can increase the strength. It can remove the toxins from the body. It strengthens the muscles, joints, bones, and it can stimulate the functions of every organ and the system in the body. Let's look into the Panchakarma. You all might have heard about Panchakarma, the word, which is the strength of Ayurveda. The very 5 detox therapies: Vamana, the medicated vomiting; Virechana, the medicated purging therapy; Nasya, nasal administration of medicines through nose; Basti, the medicated enemas; Rakta Mokshana, bloodletting therapy. These are scientifically designed from time immemorial to remove toxins from the body, and have been in practice from 5,000 years back. So what I mean to say is, don't you think all these essential and should be an integral part of health maintenance in our daily life? So preventing health or preserving health, and the disease-free life is possible by undergoing Panchakarma periodically. See, we subject our vehicles periodically for, services, don't we? We subject our vehicles for the smooth, to ensure the smooth journey all through year. And why not the preventive health practices be made compulsory? So my request, or you can say the inputs towards the health policy from this dais, a very great platform, is like, when the government can make vehicle insurances mandatory, why not the human health and wellness practices mandatory? So Ayurveda's preventive strategies or therapies should be, part and parcel of the lifestyle for the maintenance of the health. And that is number one. Number two, what we have now is an illness treatment insurances, correct? The health as healthcare policies or health policies. A paradigm shift towards wellness insurances be made compulsory or mandatory to ensure a healthy society. I would like to quote Dr. APJ Kalam's statement at this juncture that prevention through Ayurvedic system is the best way to bring down healthcare costs. So with this, I conclude my talk saying Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramaya. May all be happy and disease-free life. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. May all be happy with that presentation. I think he made a very important point and adds value to the larger discussion that's taking place. Now, what we'll do is with the permission from the panel, sir, we have 20 minutes. We'll take some Q&A. We'll take some questions from the floor. I hope that's okay with you. And we'll end at 5. Yeah. Now, you listened to 3 different presentations from Dr. Chari to Dr. Krishna Prasad, looking at science, looking at the larger global issues, looking at G20 as a Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, and also looking at all of them through Ayurvedic practices. Now, who would like to take the floor now? I'll request them to bring the mic to you. Yeah, we'll start with him. Dr. Raj, you have anything to add? Dr. Raj? No? Okay, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. So my question is regarding the cultural heritage which you were speaking.
You have to be a bit louder. We can't hear you.
So my question is regarding the cultural heritage you were speaking about, the intangible cultural heritage. So these days we see a lot of cultural practices and religious rituals which we have been forgetting. So what recommendation would you suggest for preserving and instilling those in young minds?
Okay, let that be the first question. What recommendation we panel would like to give on preserving cultural heritage? Sir, we'll take 1 or 2 more questions. Is it okay? So that we can one on cultural heritage preservation. What could be the, give it to him, please. So let's take 2 more questions and then we'll come back to you. Maybe all of you may want to respond.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
No.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
My question is very much related to science and technology. We all know that the semiconductor industry is about to bloom in India as per new regulations made up by the government of India. But the main issue people are facing is the technology of chip manufacturing, which is very much regulated or restricted by America. They have just imported that technology to Taiwan under some regulations or something, but it completely belongs to America. How do we develop such technology within India?
Interesting. The third, the one behind you. So how do we develop specialized technologies in India? Let's make a broader question, sir. Though it's chip is an important one. Yeah.
Sir, namaste. Sir, one of my questions is that how sustainable is EV, sir? Considering that mining is quite toxic to the environment and we do use heavy diesel-driven vehicles for this. And mining is also toxic even for the miners. So that's one question. Sir, one more question is considering the environment. So right now, Russia is the only nation to have nuclear-powered icebreakers. And they intend to bring about a route in the northern pole area. So my question is, how will this affect the environment? How will this affect the biodiversity? And what steps can G20 take to control this or respond to this?
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, okay, let Rashmi and then we'll get back to the panel and then we'll come in the second round. Is it all right? Yeah, please.
Thank you, panel. This question is not directed to any one panelist, but just a general observation from my side that this was something that I saw even when our young scholars were talking. There is a lot of recommendations and suggestions about what G20 can do and a lot of issues that are being discussed. However, some are very national, some might be some national specific, or they might be global issues, but different at national and local levels. So are we making a generalization here? If we, how do we keep it away from generalization? Because every solution does not apply for every G20 country. That is one. If we realize that there is no generalization, how do we bring together all these solutions and put it under one platform called as G20 and make it as one coherent policy that we are looking at?
Thank you. Now, if I request the panel to be a bit brief, we can have one more round of questions, sir. We'll start with you, Charissa. Yeah, we'll start with then Krishna Prasad, sir, from this side.
I can tell the semiconductor chip, it's not restricted to United States. Who said that one? No, because that the technology designed by them, they are holding it up. Okay. So likewise, India can also take it up. Nobody is preventing you to take up that technology, So what we can do is including R&D means including semiconductor technology should be given importance. Okay, that recommendations we can take. And another question, somebody said, environmental issue.
EV, sir, electric vehicles.
Electric vehicle. Yes, if you look at the Western countries, most of them, they are turning into electric vehicles. In India also, we have started. Probably, yes, the G20 will definitely recommend this kind of so that we can avoid several other major problems that we have. It's really coming up. In fact, the G20 should also give importance to that also, is in my opinion.
Thank you. Dr. Krishna Prasad? Yeah, that's it.
I would like to give my opinion, suggestion on the cultural heritage. Somebody raised it. Particularly, say, for example, we have an architectural heritage, a very rich Indian architectural heritage. If you look at those things, it's very much surprising. If you look at the technology or the science behind it, very much. So the young minds of what we are talking about, apart from preserving those things, we need to work up, observe and apply those things and create new things. Just don't depend on whatever that was existing earlier. Create new things and bring all the world mind towards India. Focus, let the whole world focus India. So please work on those things rather than just conservation and preservation.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention one thing. He said EV, electronic vehicle. Nowadays we are working on hydrogen technology. Probably before any country takes it up, India should take this hydrogen technology aspect.
Thank you.
Then only you can avoid several other problems.
Thank you.
That's hydrogen technology is very, very important. We are abundant. Water is surrounding with us. We can take it up.
Adding to sir words, even we have a blessed with the solar energy. We can go with this also. Some scholars, they spoke about the solar agriculture. We have India, by using the existing natural resources, India can lead. That's what India can do for the G20 countries. And as for regarding the cultural heritage, I told heritage culture, cultural heritage, government, G20 countries, not only India alone, all G20 countries need to find out or needs to identify the heritage culture. They have to create the awareness. They might not be knowing anything about the technology. G20 countries, they have to create awareness and they have to bring the heritage culture to the mainstream because they are knowing, they are living with the nature. They are having a specific culture. Even we don't know that what they have. regarding Ayurveda, regarding, that's plants and all, they will be aware about that. G20 countries needs to identify these heritage culture and they have to bring them to the mainstream. Then only India can achieve its goal, and G20 countries also, they can achieve their goal. One land, one sun, and one family. This is my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chari sir, especially on the question that Rashmi asked, global issues and local issues. You also talked about global and local.
That's a very important point, of course, no doubt about it. That is why I said there are global problems. Local problems can be solved locally also. The question is how to look at global problems. So global problems will also have to be looked at from 2 points of view. One is find a local solution. And there are 3 elements of any solution. 1, it should be easy. 2, it should be sustainable. And 3, we should be able to replicate it. But not all solutions can be replicated all over the world. But we are not saying that whatever we say should be done. So these 3 aspects we should remember. So link global problems to local solutions. That is what G20 is talking about.
Thank you. We'll take one more round of questions. We'll start with him. Sir, just give me a minute, sir. We'll come to you. You and then Dr. Raj. Oh, 2 more, 3 more. Please.
Thank you for this opportunity. My question is like in 2022 SDG report, India is still ranking at 121 position among 163 nations. And we are improved in only SDG numbers 12 and 13. To the best of my knowledge, many of the students, even after masters, are not aware of the SDGs at present. So whether it is possible for the G20 to give a recommendation to the institutes or the countries so that they can make a course mandatory for the either undergraduates or postgraduate students on at least one SDG, so that the students get aware of that. Because in India, we have Indian Constitution mandatory for undergraduates, so that at least one SDG course could be made mandatory so that all will be aware of it.
Thank you. Dr. Raj, please. Here. Harish? Okay. Just 1 minute, we'll come to you. Yeah, just after this.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Sudhindra from Industry and Academia in Mysore. I just want to know, G20 has a mixture of different nations. Some have reducing population, some have increasing population. India is in a good position that we have young minds, a lot of them. My question is anybody addressing the issue of population? As Dr. Rangappa was mentioning, it will also affect the GDP. So I want to know if any quorum is there where how these different countries will analyze this population issue. The country like Japan has huge aging population. So these are some of the topics that may come into this G20.
Yeah.
So if somebody can throw some light on this, I will be nice.
Thank you for bringing the demographic question. It's an important one. Harish, him, and then there are 2 girls that row. Oh, 1 more.
Good evening, everyone. Sir, my question to distinguished member of Governing Council, Dr. Sheshadri, sir. Sir, we have this G20 since 1999, and it's formed almost like 23, 24 years now. What is because we all are very much unaware and we're all from the student and scholarly background. So we would like to see an insight on what a G20 is having its internal efficiency monitoring on its implementation of all the goals, all the responsibilities, all the challenges they're taking up with all the countries. And if, let's say, some countries are not participating properly or inactively inefficient, what are their strategies and how are they going to impact? Because all the suggestions, whatever we are giving, whatever the goals we are setting up, if let's say one of the country or 2 countries or 3 countries, they don't perform well, or they don't have that many resources, or they don't have that much drive towards this, at the end of the day, the G20 itself fails. So what is an internal rectification process that goes around inside the G20.
Thank you. The point well taken. And there are two more, and then one last. We'll end with that. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Myself, Dr. Sukruta. So I'm an Ayurvedic doctor. So young Ayurvedic scholars are not clear about their views of future in the field of Ayurveda. So I have a suggestion for this. Like only a few organizations have well-established research infrastructure for exclusive research in Ayurveda. So experienced researchers with knowledge of modern technologies are required to conduct advanced and quality research in Ayurveda. So we want some institution where research is conducted for Ayurvedic purpose, and the people like the Ayurvedic physicians who are interested, we want some courses so that they can implement some courses or some after UG, we go for postgraduates and other things, and they get into the stream of teaching and practice.
Thank you.
So we want them to even get into like research field and do it, like get into more of research and bring Ayurveda in like national and international level.
Sure.
So whatever preventive, curative, what we say, that can be implemented in this way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, when we do the next Young Scholar Workshop, maybe we'll get you to speak on what G20 can do on Ayurveda. That's a very important point. I think after listening to him and listening to you, I think we should bring that as a part of our discussion.
Yeah,
the
sure.
one next to you. We'll come back to you. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good evening. I'm Dr. Shambhavi Shrikanta, Ayurveda practitioner. So being an Ayurveda practitioner, I have come across this issue that the reach of Ayurveda treatment and medicine has improved a lot in urban sector. Yet being more OPDs in the rural areas, they don't have the reach towards Ayurveda medicines there. So it's better that, we look through this problem and we see to, include these Ayurveda medicines cost effectively in Jan Aushadh Kendras.
Yeah.
And also make Panchakarma treatments available for them in OPD centers so that we can have this preventive care. Like we have Svedana treatments like Katibasti, Janubasti. So these treatments can help the old age people or the upcoming elderly people to prevent osteoporosis. So this was my suggestion.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that valid suggestion. Looks like there is a Ayurveda pressure group in Mysore, sir. The last one. The last one. Now, next time we will include this as a part of our G20 workshop.
Namaste, sir. I'm Dr. Harshita, second year PG scholar, Government Ayurveda Medical College, Mysuru. My question is, now always India has been the first one to have a multilateral venture and support to the other countries taking in and giving out. So when it comes to health sector, Ayurveda has a different behavior. People have changed their behavior in seeking the Ayurvedic treatment after COVID especially. So what promising hopes that the Ayurveda fraternity can get by having India as a presidency to G20 summit, and thus the other countries like the European countries, and where we don't have much scope and much opening to our Ayurveda because of many limitations and uncovered facts which have not come out. So can all these be cleared, and can we get a way through for having a supporting globalization of Ayurveda?
Yeah, thank you. What we can and what we should do is very clear after listening to you. We should hear more of you. That's all an Ayurvedic question. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I don't know the question how much accurate it is, but I wanted to ask, sir, how India can use this G20 presidency opportunity to mitigate the trade barriers among the developed countries, so that our Indian companies can grow well in more developed countries and our economy can grow up, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Finally, something on economy. Sir, we'll start with you. And then we'll end this session on time. No, sir?
Yeah, two very quick answers. One is SDG in curriculum. That's a very good suggestion. Some universities and colleges especially, where they teach some of these subjects, they have taken it up. And it's also integrated with humanities and to some extent economics. So they are doing it. But how to integrate SDGs into basic curriculum? I think we can suggest this to NCERT. and they can work on it. It is like value education. So you need not teach value education as an independent subject. You can add value education in other subjects also, like mathematics teacher, when she says that 2 minus 3 is so and so, something like this, or she says 5 plus 5 is equal to 10. So she can teach that you have 5 chocolates and your friend doesn't even have 1 chocolate. So what you do, you share 2 chocolates with your friend. And then she gives a small 5-minute talk on what is sharing. So that is a value. So a mathematics teacher also can teach values by saying that sharing is important, sharing is caring. So you have 5 chocolates, you share it with somebody for 2. So you're left with 3. So this is something that the present NCERT and the things are working. Now they are looking at this, how to integrate value education in curriculum. It's ongoing process. So that we can do this also. That's a good idea. And as far as performance assessment of G20 is concerned, see, G20 does not have a secretariat. Unlike SDG, SDG comes under United Nations, UNCTAD, and all those things. So UNCTAD looks after SDGs also. And SDGs are mandatory because we are signatory to the SDGs. G20 is not a institutionalized body. Therefore, we cannot have a punitive action. If you don't do this, this is a punishment. We cannot have that. So this is only a suggestion for action. So if a country takes the suggestion and does act upon it, it is very good. Otherwise, if a country doesn't take an action on certain things, of course, they will have problems, but because they are part of G20, the G20 also will have problems. So that we can't help it, but we can overcome it by inculcating more commitment on the part of the members. That is the maximum we can do. That is why we have got what we call the rotating presidency. Every year, one country becomes president. So India will become president after another 20 years. So that rotating presidency gives them some sort of ownership over the institution. Instead of having one president for the next 100 years, this system has been developed. So it has worked very well so far. How far it will work, we cannot say. But whereas where India is concerned, there are certain institutions where we have taken the lead. So we can work on those institutions also. That business trade barrier question. See, there are a number of trade barriers. Now we are also party to the trade barriers. We also impose trade barriers and we also suffer because of trade barriers. Now, even a highly developed country like America has got so much trade barrier as far as agricultural products are concerned. So we have told them in a language which they will understand. So we have told them that, look, if you can have trade barriers as far as agricultural products are concerned, we can also have them. So we have not become party to any of those regimes. There are so many other barriers, as Dr. Rangappa mentioned, as far as science is concerned. Our technological progress could not go as much as we wanted is because of so many restrictions that the Western world has put as far as scientific technology transfer is concerned. Now, technology transfer has two parties. One is the one who has the technology, another is the one who wants the technology. But the transfer does not happen easily. There are 10 stages of technology transfer. The first 7 stages are with us. If you want a good technology, you have to have that kind of a receptivity. You should have a higher education center where you train students and engineers who can take this technology and implement it. If you don't have that system, what is the use of getting a technology? Tomorrow I can get rocket technology, but I don't have a facility to make a rocket. What will I do? I don't have an engineer who understands rocket. What will I do with the technology? So technology transfer is 2 ways, but there are other regimes like TRIPS and TRIMS. The GATT is an example. It's a very, very broad subject, but your question is very correct. as far as these barriers are concerned, we will have to overcome these barriers. But when we overcome these barriers, two things we should remember. One, the necessity to adopt those technologies and necessity to comply to those trade barriers. If we have no other option but to comply, we have to do it. That is one. Two, we cannot compromise with our autonomy or strategic autonomy, which we hold very dear to. So at the cost of our sovereignty or autonomy, we should not comply with any of those barriers. These two things we should remember. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Krishna Prasad, would you like to add anything? No, I think. Sir, would you? Okay. Now, then let's thank the panel for that excellent note. And that brings us to the final part of today, the concluding session. We started on time and we are ending on time. Before I request Dr. Bharati to propose a formal vote of thanks, may I request Neti Singh from RIS to say a few words on how she saw the process. You want to come here, please?
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. I'm really, really glad to have organized this on behalf of RIS, Ministry of External Affairs, and Professor Subhash Chandran sir, who has been phenomenal in terms of organizing this lecture. I would also propose a special thanks to all the young scholars who have been part. Harini Madhusudan, Akriti Sharma, Padma Shri Anandan, Varsha K, Sureka Harimat, Harish Raya, Gadi and Katya for their insightful recommendations and proposals for the G20. And I would also like to propose an esteemed thank you to Dr. Shashidhar Chari, Professor K.S. Rangappa and Dr. Krishna Prasad for their insightful and enlightening comments, so that we get more engaged and we are given a platform to have a voice on global issues. I would also like to talk about how we have organized. This is our 46th University Connect lecture by RIS and Ministry of External Affairs for PM Narendra Modi's vision of empowering the youth of India, giving youth a global voice and enabling youth contribution to G20 India. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this session. And I would like to conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nedi. Before I request Dr. Bharati, I think 9 young scholars, 4 discussants, 3 experts panel. What is my math? 9 plus 4 plus 3, somewhere around 16 in 3 hours is, I think we should congratulate ourselves. We played a good T20, G20 match today. With that note, may I invite Dr. Bharati to propose a formal vote of thanks to us. Bharati, over to you.
Will not take much time, sir. It's a really good evening. It's very happy to know that all youngsters, they have given the valuable inputs. What else we need, what else it is required for the G20 countries. And moreover, it is happy to know that majority of the scholars or girls or female scholars, it is I can surely say that it will be a very valuable input for the G20, and it is a great message to the G20 countries. And India is taking lead with taking a girls, female scholars. I sincerely express my gratitude to my Ministry of External Affairs, MEA, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, New Delhi, and National Institute of Advanced Studies, NIAS, Bengaluru, for providing this platform to young minds. I am thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Principal Maharajas College, AO and AO of the Maharajas College for their support. I thank for Professor Subhash Chandran for his constant effort and support, because since the day one he is putting effort to bring all the scholars and to identify the scholars. It's not an easy matter. He took a great step to identifying and making them and training them to come to the this big platform. And I take this opportunity to thank all the experts and delegates for their valuable inputs. I extend my sincere thanks to all the professors, faculties, and scholars from various departments. I appreciate all the efforts taken by the staff of Information and Communication Division and media people for making this event successful. Last but not the least, I thank all the students for joining together in making India's G20 presidency as a presidency of healing, harmony, and hope. I'm sure and I'm very proud to say that today our youngsters addressed the global issues and came out with innovative ideas and solutions. I personally feel that today's G20 program has witnessed unique and crucial inputs to meet India's G20 motto, that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I believe that today's discussion not only helped youngsters to learn new things, but it has also inspired them to achieve a greater heights. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka. Thank you.
Thank you. We bring this session to an end. Let me invite you for a cup of tea outside. Thank you.